What is your who makes up the most students that you've got? I mean, are you pivoting more specifically towards LE-based stuff, or are you still doing open enrollment?
I do way more open enrollment than I do LE, but in those open enrollment classes, I get like 2, 3, 4 LE guys almost every class,
Yeah.
which is cool, and it's nice to see, and it depends on where in the country I'm teaching. I also still have military contract stuff. I still have federal agency contract stuff, so good stuff. I stay really busy.
Yeah.
For a one-man show, I'm very busy. I'm excited about what I do.
Yeah.
Right. And to kind of speak to what you asked earlier, where I love doing what I'm doing, and it's not really like, oh, I got to give back or anything like that. It's just I enjoy it, and so far I've been pretty good at it. And people keep coming back, so that just makes me want to do it more. And I love the I guess the gratification I get out of teaching somebody. I love seeing their little light bulb turn on, and because I look at it as teaching, I don't look at it as instructing.
There's a difference.
And there's a slight difference, and people would say like, it's semantics, but yeah, words mean things, and if I can teach you something, that means you can take it and you can either pass it on, which is good, or learn it more in depthly because you understand the intricacies of it. Versus I instruct you, okay, I'm going to instruct you on how to get a grip. You only know how to get that grip. So a little bit different, but I look at it as teaching. And I look at myself as a teacher. I want to be more of a teacher. I very happy-go-lucky. I'm passionate about what I do, and every time I teach somebody, I'm like, all right, I want to make sure they understand it. So I put it in so many different ways. I use a lot of metaphors and stuff like that to hopefully get people to understand the concept that I'm trying to bring to them, because my brain's a little crazy, a little crazy.
Just gets focused. And you had said something earlier, which I thought was really cool, which is just like understanding biomechanics and understanding the psychology behind things. And I've found that a lot of folks that are successful are doing just that. It's not just rote skills and rote like, okay, is the line ready? And then we're going to kind of go and do our thing. But it's like, man, this is how your brain processes information. This is how information gets chunked through. This is physiologically what's happening with you and how you can apply that to whether it be your mechanics or how you execute your movements and all that type of stuff.
Anything in general.
Yeah.
Like if I was going to teach you how to drive, I'd teach you exactly the same way that I teach you how to shoot. Because those two different things, although different, our brains learn them the same way. Right? And slow and deliberate, and once you understand the concepts behind it, then we just apply those skills. So a lot of people look at any task, and they're always looking at the result. They're like, okay, I got to get an A on that test. And you're like, all right, cool, you got to get an A on that test. And they're like, all right, I hope I get that A. And they keep thinking about that A, and which is positive thinking, which is good, right? It's good to an extent. But how do we get the A, right? And what's the process you have to take to get the result that you want? So I like teaching to focus on more of the process, because the more of the process we learn, let's say we learn how to get that A, we study, we practice, we use flashcards, whatever the process it takes to get that A. If we learn how to do that, we can apply it to everything else. And not only that, but once we do it, or let's say like shooting, right? A reload is a great example, right? We learn a reload. You don't learn a reload at full speed, right? You learn at a slow pace. You're looking at everything. You're taking your time. Well, what that does is start to build that neural pathway. And once we build that neural pathway, cool. Now we just got to keep treading on that little path. Like I see it kind of like a little dirt road, right? And we're like, all right, it's just a dirt path. And then the more we take that path, the more it gets paved.
Sure.
And then at some point we're like, hey man, we need to put some asphalt on this thing. Let's make it better so we can drive on it. Cool, we made some asphalt, and we now made it a little road. All right, well, it's only a one lane. Let's get some more lanes so more people could take that, and then the more we build it, or myelinization, we start to build that neural pathway enough so that now that process to do whatever the task is becomes subconsciously competent. And then guess what? We don't have to think about it no more, which frees up that brain power, or I call it operating memory, right? It's our operating memory, kind of like RAM on a computer.
Yep.
And we free that up. Now we have more space for processing problems and making decisions and things like that. So that's what I want to get people to understand. And once they understand that process to accomplishing the result they want, they work that process until they're getting the result they want, and they've built it to a point that they don't have to think about the process anymore. Now the result just comes, and now they can think about other things. Think about driving. Driving is a great example.
Yeah.
First time we
Lots
drove.
of divided attention going on.
Oh yeah, a lot of problems. But remember the first time we drove, got into that car, we were like, oh man, there's so many things. You know, and now, like, it doesn't matter. We have music on, we're on the phone, we're eating, drinking something. We're not even paying attention to driving anymore. Not until a problem presents itself and we have to solve that problem. Right. But our brains don't have to solve that problem with like, okay, turn the wheel 3 degrees left. And then now, okay, wait, we didn't look in our mirror. Like, we don't have to think about that stuff. We just do it because it's subconsciously competent. But when we first started, man, we were consciously competent, if that, at driving. So it took a while to get better at it. And we just built that neural pathway. And now whenever we get in a rental car or a car in general, we're like, all right, cool. You know, easy peasy. So that's what I want to make my shooting. So that's what I try to introduce to students and force them in that direction. Look at things a little bit more scientifically on how we learn, how us as humans learn, and then once they understand that, what's cool is they can apply it to anything else. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
I love seeing people like, oh, and I love seeing it from older dudes, like especially older law enforcement or older military guys that are stubborn, and you see them, they're like, oh, I can't argue with the science. It's like, yeah, can't argue with it, man, and makes it way easier to teach dudes.
So is this self-taught theory? I mean, or who are you reading for this type of stuff? Like,
so what I started on was learning just on memory because I was trying to I guess fix my memory a little bit. I have short-term memory loss from some bangs, but that little bit of memory loss started making me think, okay, how can I make it better? And then it got me into the brain and then understanding the brain, and then from there it got me to the eyes and understanding how the eyes work. And then I started reading a little bit more on practicing, like what athletes do to practice.
Yes, right.
And that's where it started leading me into the body stuff and understanding like how they all combine into learning this one skill, whatever it is, kicking the ball. You know, and if I can understand how to do that, then guess what? I can apply that to other things by just modifying things a little bit. So that's where it got me. One of the books I love and I always recommend to people is Peak. It's about deliberate practice. Has a ton about that stuff. Beautiful book to get you started on down that rabbit hole at least. But that was one of my favorite things. And then one of the biggest influences was and you know I worked under Frank Proctor for a while, and Frank always talked about his eyes, right? Like vision, right? And speed of vision and stuff. And that was something when I was a brand new private in the Army and even later on when I started hanging out with him a lot more, I didn't understand what he meant. I was like, he's like, man, you could see the world, like open your vision. I'm like, you sound like Willy Wonka, man. I don't understand.
It's like that first drill that he does where you're focusing on the target and he's like talking about like watching the shell casing and being able to actually read the head stamp on it. And that was wild.
And I never even thought about it that way. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to see what he's talking about. Years later, and he could probably tell you, I called him randomly. It was like a Thursday or something. I was on the range, and I saw my brass, like naturally. Just I was like, why am I seeing this? And each time, and I'm like, son of a bee. That's what he was talking about. Vision and my speed of vision, that got me down another rabbit hole of understanding the eyes, which is a whole nother monster, but really cool stuff that our eyes can do. And people don't even realize it. Like, good example, people think we move our eyes. Like, oh, I'm just moving from there to there or something. What we're actually doing is saccading. And people don't even fucking realize it's a completely different thing from movement. It's like more of a flinch. And that's why our eyes are so much faster than our hands. That means if I get my eyes there, I can get my hands there, they're gonna make it there, but my eyes have to be there first. So that whole vision monster or what Frank calls it vision quest, right? And that's what took me down that road. So meshing all these things, like learning about my body, learning about my brain, learning about my eyes, and you combine them to an extent to getting you to where my curriculum kind of fills in those gaps to hopefully bring you to that point of understanding with some steps and some obviously with shooting versus me teaching you how to kick a ball. But that's pretty much how I teach.
So you're going to be doing the RDS pistol classes here. That's
That I have rifle,
Yeah.
and I also have my low light, no light drills night,
Nice.
which is just us running reps and doing some drills and kind of forcing people to push past their limits a little bit, which is more of a fun class versus like we're going to learn things. Obviously, they're going to get some stuff because people are going to bring up certain things and we'll be like, all right, this is how it works. But that one's going to be whether you want to do it low light, you want to do it night vision. It's kind of fresh for everybody.
very cool. So I'm going to be taking your RDS class, which I'm stoked about because I've never had
be
any
fun.
like formal training on the pistol optic. You know, so it's like my agency is looking at moving to those as for patrol. So our SWAT guys already have them. Patrol level guys do not. If I was given the option to go on to transition over to that today, I would say no, just because I've got 15 years of front sight focus, and I got to learn how to retrain everything like that. So how is that gonna work on day one if you have like a brand new noob, or maybe somebody's like looked through an acro before, but like how do you break that down for like the novice RDS shooter?
So it comes down to a couple things, right? One of the biggest ones is finding your dot, right? I think that's one of the biggest things for most guys to understand is where the fuck your dot is. Now you have a ton of different options on finding it. One of my favorites is, especially for somebody who's shot iron sights for so long, is use your irons as kind of like training wheels. But the hard part is transitioning their eyes from being 18 inches away from their face to the target now.
Right.
So, which is how we shoot dots. Now, with that comes a couple different exercises and stuff like that to get them going. But the most I can tell you is, or the easiest thing to do, even at home, right, is take a piece of paper with some writing on it, and you do almost like one of the Will and centrifuge drills, where you read something. You don't have to shoot with it, but you can dry fire through your dot while seeing those in focus. Or you take a picture, right? You take a square or a triangle or something, and you make sure it has nice, very crisp lines. And when you look at it, make sure your lines are nice and crisp, bring up your dot. All right, cool. So, and all you're doing is training this motion, right? And once you get that good old neural pathway, once again, and you start building that, it becomes so much easier to pick up dots. Then it becomes a thing of, okay, we have to do this with different circumstances, different angles, leaning, out of cover, things like that, all sorts of awkward things, so that you can start to build up that process again. But just like anything else, what's your backup in case you can't find your dot? Your irons, which if your irons are good still and they're still on your gun, your dot should be right there.
Right.
So it's as simple as that, but obviously you have to go a little bit more in depth with some guys because some people learn differently. One of the things I do a lot, I try to hit all three of the learning modalities: physical learners, the visual learners, and the auditory learners, and try to conquer, or at least show them and tell them and have them try it all in one. And that way people can experience these things and they learn that way a lot better, or easier, if anything. So that's one of those things too, when it comes to the RDS, is reps, but also proper reps. And a lot of guys try to go at their normal speed and they lose things. Once again, going back to deliberate practice, we want to go slow, right? Go slow and deliberate. And if you pretend going in slow motion, you do everything correct in slow motion every single time. And why? Because that's the easiest way. But that's building a good neural pathway every single time. And yeah, repetition's a thing, and we do that. We myelinate that neural pathway, and you have the skill. Then when I tell you to do it fast, you're like, oh, there's my dot. Look at that.
Right.
Magic.
Right.
But it's not. It's science. So magic science. But yeah,
Makes sense.
that's as simple as it gets.
No, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this class, man. I'm
It's gonna be fun.
super stoked to
Yeah,
get a chance to
I
get some.
wish you could do 2 days, because we'll do more obviously in 2 days, but 1 day's good.
I like it.
Heck yeah.
And it makes sense, right? So it's not just like the usual rote stuff, and people are just like, because reps is reps. But
Yeah, but good reps are
Yeah.
good reps, right? So I don't know. A lot of guys they take that, and that's instructing, right? That's up, do it again, up.
Right.
That's instructing, right? I want to teach. I want to get into the head a little bit. So some of my lecture portions are a little long, but most of the time they're worth it in the long run, especially if people pay attention. But there's always the onesies and twosies you lose, and then they ask questions afterwards, which is totally cool. It's just the way they learn.
Yeah.
Understanding things like that I just don't understand. I'm always trying to learn stuff. And it kind of goes with my goals in life. right? I only have two goals. It's to learn things and have fun. And like, if I'm doing both of those every day, I'm a happy camper.
Sure.
Right? If I miss out on one, I'll stay up at night and try and learn something. Like I use Khan Academy. I don't know if you ever heard of that. So Khan Academy is like a free online university that was put together by a bunch of billionaires or whatever. And you can go on there and look up any subject you want. Like anatomy, fucking biology. Like you look up things that you don't remember from fucking middle school.
Yeah.
And there's classes on it, little worksheets, all sorts of videos. It's really cool. And if I didn't learn something that day, I'll go on there and learn something new.
Nice.
So like anything I can get my hands on, because those are the things that make me happy, just learning things and having fun.
Right.
So I'm a big fan of that. And if I don't have fun, I go get like ice cream or something. That's always fun.
Always fun.
You can't go wrong.
I dig it.
But yeah.
Well, I'm stoked, man. Thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely, dude.
Really, really appreciate
Absolutely.
it. And excited. Super excited to learn from you.
It's gonna be fun.
All right.
We're gonna shoot things.
I'm down. I'm down.